the Stoics believe in giving people their own personal autonomy. They believe that you should always let people show you that they like you. You should always let people come to you. You should never suffocate people with your presence. That's one of the most important laws of Stoicism, is respect people's personal boundaries. And sometimes you don't know somebody's personal boundaries unless they show you how, through the restrictions they give you, but also through the...
Like a boss.
Now, since I know you're going to enjoy this, this is something that I teach in my course, Charisma Blueprint. And by the way, the income from the Charisma Blueprint that I get goes to my school and for paying for my education, pretty much. But in this course, Charisma Blueprint, I pretty much teach you guys everything that I'm going to teach you guys in this video, but in more in depth. It pretty much teaches you how to be more likable, how to be more approachable, and how to attract people in your life without pushing them away. I teach you guys two forms of charisma. One, the inner form of charisma, and the outer form of charisma. The difference is that the inner form of charisma is the charisma that you experience when you're face to face with someone. And the outer form of charisma is the charisma that people feel when they see you at a distance, right? And both are equal. You have the long sword and your short sword. And Miyamoto Musashi always told his warriors to learn to fight with two swords. Long sword for when the opponent is far away, short sword for when the opponent is close by. What I'm teaching you is the short sword and long sword method. Too many people only have one type of charisma. And in this course, I teach you how to have both types of charisma. The long sword for when people see you at a distance, like a teacher or like a celebrity or even a public figure. But then once people get close to you, you want to be likable. And we've all heard how a lot of celebrities are not likable. Why? Because they lack the short sword. So if you like this and you're interested in it, click on the description down below and purchase the course. And you guys can watch a free video to see if you like it. Purchase it, and if you don't like it, you can ask for your money back. I swear to God, I am not going to close the channel. Let's continue with the video. First of all, let's understand something about men. Men, when you are away from them, studies show that when a man is away from his woman, his body creates a lot more sperm than usual and higher volume, simply because it's a way for men to remove paternity uncertainty. In other words, in prehistoric times, men didn't know whether or not the child was theirs because everyone looked alike. Most people didn't travel to know. Tyrone didn't go to fucking Sweden, where if he has a kid in Sweden, people will know that's Tyrone's kid. No, everyone looked the same. So the human male body had to find out how could it combat that problem. So what did men do? Men adapted, and whenever a woman is away, it just creates more sperm. So that the next time he shoots up the club, he shoots up the club with so much of his troops, there's no way that the other dude can reach the egg. And plenty of studies have shown that, right? So what does that say? That says is that simply having space makes a guy fantasize about you, makes a guy want you. Simply having space. Why? Because a man's insecurity will want to make sure that you are completely his. So it makes a man more possessive, just giving space. And that happens a lot more with men than women. So that's the advantage that this strategy has. You see, one of the things that the Stoics always taught people is respect for autonomy. Giving people respect of autonomy. That means giving people space. That means not crowding them. That means not touching them when they don't want to be touched. That means not talking to them when they don't want to be talked to. One of the most important things that they taught is sense the vibe in people. Give people more space than necessary. And so we're going to talk about why that's so important and why it always works. Why it always works to attract a man, to attract a woman. And this is one of those things that a lot of people don't follow because it does create anxiety. It is uncomfortable giving people space, especially when you want to get an answer out of them. So let's talk about why. Well, first of all, let's just talk about when it comes to falling in love, right? Anybody falling in love with you, that don't have to be romantically. That means a friend who loves you, or even a job, right? Usually when they realize how much they appreciate you, it never happens in your presence. Because when you're talking to someone or even a partner and you looking at them eyeball to eyeball, you do feel emotions, right? But a part of you understands that sometimes those emotions just come in the moment. Sometimes those emotions are just adrenaline, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between feeling a genuine connection versus feeling a genuine versus feeling the adrenaline. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference, right? Like telling the difference between certain foods, right? It's really hard. So, so the best way to tell is space. Why? Just like a crystal, right? Crystals become crystallized over time, right? Over time, little particles come together and form a crystal, right? Over time, the water in a cave that's mineral rich slowly evaporates and creates a crystal. But the crystal doesn't become crystallized instantly. It becomes crystallized part by part, little by little, right? And those parts by parts are little thoughts. And that only happens when you give people space, where all of a sudden they don't realize that they've been crystallizing an image of you, and then they realize one day they think of you, and then you pop up in their minds, and they're like, oh my God, I love this person. But I could promise you, most people realize that they love you when they're not there.
Falling in love can be likened to the process of crystallization in several ways. Just as a crystal forms over time, love also tends to accumulate gradually, building upon moments and experiences. In the early stages of falling in love, it may be difficult to pinpoint exactly when it began. Just like the initial formation of a crystal, there are subtle changes happening beneath the surface. Perhaps it starts with a shared laugh or a deep conversation that sparks a connection. These small interactions act as the building blocks, slowly layering upon one another. As time goes on, love begins to take shape, just like the growing structure of a crystal. It becomes more defined, gaining strength and solidity. The once intangible feelings now start to exhibit distinct patterns and characteristics. Moments spent together become cherished memories, adding depth and complexity to the relationship. Similarly, falling in love often involves a realization or moment of clarity, much like the final recognition that a crystal has formed. There comes a point where we acknowledge the depth of our emotions and understand that we have fallen in love. It's a realization that may take time to fully comprehend, but once it happens, it becomes a beautiful revelation. While the process of falling in love can vary from person to person, the gradual accumulation of emotions and experiences is a common thread. Just as a crystal grows and solidifies over time, love evolves and strengthens through shared moments, connection, and understanding. It's a beautiful journey that adds up, layer by layer, until we finally recognize that we've fallen deeply in love.
If you are constantly there, you're stopping the crystallization process. And that's why I always tell people in the beginning, when you're first talking to people, give them space. After a few months or weeks, or maybe after you know they love you, then you could start talking to them and being with them almost every day. But in the beginning, give them space so that they can start crystallizing you. The brain needs space so that they can start fantasizing. Because the way it works is that in the beginning, you like them, right? And then all of a sudden, they'll just flash in your mind while you're doing dishing. And you're like, the fuck? This person just came to my mind. And then all of a sudden, another day, another flash in your mind. Now this flash comes with an emotion. You're like, oh my God, that's crazy. And then maybe one day you think about something bad that could happen to them. Then all of a sudden you feel deep compassion. Boom. That's another crystal. That's another particle getting into this crystal without you even knowing it. One day you wake up and you're in love with them. But this only happens when you're not around. That's what you have to understand. That's the most important thing to understand. So that's the first thing. It creates the crystallization process so that people can actually love you and appreciate you. But that can never happen if you don't give them space.
There can be various reasons why people tend to realize they are in love only when the person they're falling for is not present. Let's explore some perspectives that shed light on this phenomenon. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. When you are physically apart from someone, there is a certain level of longing and yearning that can intensify emotions. The absence of their presence allows individuals to reflect on their feelings more deeply, leading to the realization that they are in love. Fear of vulnerability. Falling in love involves opening oneself up to vulnerability. Some individuals may hesitate to acknowledge their feelings until they are away from the person they're falling for. This distance provides a sense of safety, allowing them to process their emotions without the fear of rejection or judgment. Time for introspection. Being away from someone gives individuals the space and time to reflect on their thoughts and feelings. It allows them to evaluate their own emotions, assess the impact the other person has on their life, and recognize the depth of their perspective shift. Sometimes being physically separated from someone can bring about a change in perspective. It enables individuals to see the bigger picture, evaluate the relationship from a different vantage point, and realize the significance of their feelings. Comparison with others. When someone is not present, individuals may interact with other people and notice the contrast in their feelings. This comparison can act as a catalyst for the realization of their love, as they recognize that their emotions are unique and special. Emotional clarity. Distance can provide emotional clarity and remove distractions that may cloud judgment. When the daily routines and interactions are momentarily paused, individuals see.
The next thing is that it allows you to show independence. One of the problems about falling in love is the sense of losing our sense of our ability to control our emotions. You see, when we're in love, we can't control our emotions. And one of the things that the Stoics always teach is controlling your emotions and depending on yourself. So giving people space will cause them to realize, oh my God, this person is independent. This person doesn't need me. But at the same time, if you actually like them as people, they're all, when in your presence, they're gonna sense that they're gonna feel like they're the only ones in the world, and that's something that you can learn by practicing meditation. If you practice meditation, you learn to pay so much attention to what people are saying that they're gonna feel like they're the only ones in love in their life. You initially charm them with your full attention. And then once they're away, you live your life. You make them feel, which is the natural process of paying attention, like they were the most interesting person in the world. And whatever you give to people, if they like you back and have some level of self-respect for you and respect for you, the law of reciprocation will come into play. You give them self-esteem and they'll give you back self-esteem. So when you're away and you give them the space, because people are going to say, okay, this person liked me, I was really charming, they're going to come to me, right? But it's their turn. You validated them. Now it's their time to validate you. It's only normal. Now they come to you. Now they text you. Now they want to see you. Now they want to hang out. They're the ones that do it, right? Why? Because you already took the initiative. When you were in person, you made them feel like they were the most interesting person in the world. But now it's their turn to make you feel that by them initiating some contact, initiating another meetup, now it depends on the sexes, right? But generally speaking, you let them do that, because nothing says you're an anxious mess than not being able to give people space. What that says is that I need you for my validation, and that's a burden that a lot of people don't like and a lot of people resent. The Stoics believe in giving people their own personal autonomy. They believe that you should always let people show you that they like you. You should always let people come to you. You should never suffocate people with your presence. That's one of the most important laws of Stoicism, is respect people's personal boundaries. And sometimes you don't know somebody's personal boundaries unless they show you how, through the restrictions they give you, but also through the access that they give you. And the access is you only know the access that they're going to give you by letting them show you, by not asking for access, but by letting them give you the access. Now look, giving people space isn't just about giving people like physical space, right? But also during conversations, during text, in every aspect of life. Space isn't just a proximity space, but also in time. And also, that means when you're talking to them, give them space to talk. Let them be the most interesting person in the world, in your presence at least. Remember. And also, by you letting them talk, by you being more interested in what they have to say, it allows you to see red flags in people. They'll reveal red flags, right? You got to be willing to look out for it. Like if a girl says, yeah, I banged my friend's brother, or I banged my boyfriend's friends as revenge, that type of stuff. You're like, okay, this bitch is crazy, right? Like you get them to talk, Get them to feel like they're the most interesting person so that they could then reveal their trait. Why? Because the whole point of all of this is to always try to give people the impression that they are interested. If you guys don't understand this, it's really important for self-esteem for people to feel like that the person who's listening to them values what they have to say. You have to give it. Once you do that, which is important, well, they'll feel the need to give back to you, and they'll validate you because you're validating them.
One historical example that highlights the importance of validation and being heard is the work of psychologist Carl Rogers and his development of client-centered therapy. Rogers believed in the power of empathy, unconditional positive regard, and active listening in therapeutic relationships. In client-centered therapy, Rogers focused on creating a safe and non-judgmental space for clients to express themselves fully. He emphasized the importance of providing unconditional positive regard and empathetic understanding to the client's experiences, emotions, and perspectives. Rogers found that when clients felt validated and heard in therapy sessions, they were more likely to open up, explore their feelings, and work towards personal growth. This approach shifted the dynamics of therapy, empowering individuals to take charge of their own healing process and fostering positive results in terms of self-awareness, self-acceptance, and personal development. Rogers' client-centered therapy continues to influence therapeutic practices today, highlighting the profound impact that validation and being heard can have on an individual's well-being and growth within a therapeutic relationship. By validating others and making them feel heard, we create an environment that promotes reciprocity, empathy, and understanding. This nurturing atmosphere not only strengthens relationships, but also encourages others to validate our own thoughts and feelings, fostering mutual respect and deeper connections.
Now, some people are a little harder to give that than others, right? And that's why you take a precautionary step and you give people more space than necessary after the meetup. But even when you talk to people, always give them more space to talk. Take a little bit, like when they're done talking, pause a little bit more before you respond. Maybe they have something else to say, right? Always say less than necessary simply because it prevents you from making mistakes. The biggest mistakes in social interactions usually happen because people talk too much. Like in the mafia, I watch a lot of mafia movies, and usually one of the reasons why people die and get killed is because they talk too much. They may say a wrong joke at the wrong place at the wrong time. They might talk to the cops. It doesn't matter. The point is, a lot of their deaths come because of their mouths, people, not because of the actions, which is pretty insane, right? So that's one thing, right? But another thing is that by you giving people space, it makes them want you more. For example, when you go to restaurants, a good restaurant will always give you small portions. I'm sorry, that's just how it works. Usually, the best restaurants give you give you small portions. The worst restaurants give you the largest portions. There's also a psychological effect that I notice that when I go to Italian restaurants, the ones that give me the big portions, I always leave more unsatisfied. But whenever they give me small portions, there's something about small portions that just feels right. And that's because it just feels more elegant, it feels higher value, and you actually enjoy the food more. And that's the same thing with yourself. Give people small portions of yourself at first. Don't give people too much portion. Don't let them get full with you. Don't let people get too full with your charm. Give them small portions of your presence and let that build up over time. Insecurity will always make people want to be around them all the time. And you might suffocate them. It's like the smell of weed. You want to be able to smell weed. But if you smoke weed every day, you might smoke and not be able to tell that there's weed in the air. But when you don't smoke often, you don't get desensitized to the smell of weed. So every time you smell it, it's going to be a strong hit. So it's the same thing with people. Don't let them make people know that you're there. And the way you let people know that you're there, and the way that you increase the power of your presence is through absence. It's through giving people the space that they need. And it's almost like, it's funny how usually the artists that we When we love people the most and when we talk about people the most is when they're not there. We talked about Michael Jackson the most when he died, right? We talk about more about the people who are not here more than the people who are there. That's what gossip is, right? Absence, space always makes the brain gravitate towards it. It's a void, a mystery that people love thinking about. So that's one thing. It makes them want you more. And above all, it shows their willingness to fill in the gaps. If somebody really likes you as a person and they appreciate you, when by you being around them and validating them, by listening and letting them talk more than you talk. And mind you, when you let people talk more than you, they end up liking you more than you like them. It's just like, it's one of those weird tricks of human nature. By you then putting a ball in their corporate, because again, this is why I'm telling you to when you're around them, make them know that, hey, I like you as a person. You got to do that. You can't show that you don't like them. You can't be super cold in person, because then this won't work. You have to give off a warm, friendly vibe. And the way you develop that is by developing a meditation practice, people. I mean, I hate to bring that up again. A meditation practice will give you an aura of friendliness, warmth that gravitates people to you. Plain and simple. So right after that, it also then, when people know that you like them back, when you like them in real life and you're away, they're gonna try to give back to you. Like I said, validation and self-esteem. And so that means they're just going to want to be around you. They're going to chase you. They're going to say, hey, you want to hang out? Hey, it was great meeting you, blah, 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 blah. And so then you reciprocate their initiation with your initiation next, right? And then all you guys are doing is matching each other's energy. You're just matching each other's energy. If they're pulling away, you pull away, right? If they're showing interest, you show interest. But always remember, in the beginning of any relationship, always give them more space. That's just how that works. Right? Don't chase them too much. Don't see them too often at first. Let that build up over the months, over the weeks and months. Because when you spend too much time with someone in the beginning, you might end up falling in love with the wrong person. You don't want that. You don't want to fall in love with the wrong person. So in order to keep your emotional independence from the person, to not get too emotionally invested in somebody who's not investing back, that's why you want to see them initially, not that much, once a week at first, and then you build up over the weeks. Maybe the next week, maybe in the next 2 weeks, you see them 2 times a week, and then you build it up. And also because you want to give them that space. Remember the crystallization process. You want to give them more moments of like random pop-ups where you pop up in their mind, and you're like, oh wow, why am I thinking of them, right? And when they realize that you're coming up in your mind a lot of the times people just come to the conclusion that they actually like you or love you. And sometimes they end up falling in love with you. And if they're a friend, they might say, okay, I really like this friend of mine. I want to get to know them more, right? And this is something that I didn't do when I was younger. When I was younger, I would pursue too much. I would chase too much. And unfortunately, it made a lot of my relationships really difficult. Now, look. If they don't pop up, don't be asking me if there's a pop-up blocker, if there's something wrong. If the person doesn't pop up after you pull away, it just means they don't like you. You have to understand that. Maybe they don't like, maybe you're not their type. Maybe they don't feel the chemistry. Maybe they don't like the way you look. Maybe they want you to have a certain job. It doesn't matter. Like one of the highest signs that you have self-esteem is that you're able to accept rejection without internalizing a story in your mind as to why they rejected you and repeated it in your mind compulsively. If you're able to not do that, you really have true self-esteem. And if you don't, you just have to get a meditation practice, people. I don't know how much I have to assert that. Meditation practice will help you with that. But please understand that these strategies work when they like you. When they don't quote unquote work, it means that they don't like you, and that's the beauty of it. You don't waste your time, and that's the most important thing in life, is not wasting our time. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys ever want to work with me one-on-one, go to mindfulattraction.org. If you guys want to work on becoming more likable, purchase my course, Charisma Blueprint, by clicking on the description down below. And take care, and I'll see you guys later.